And also he was known as Bicycle Bill because he rode his bicycle religiously down here, if not after he played, before he played. So we're going to honor him, and his daughter Charlotte is going to say some words.
Thank you, Andy. I would just like to thank you all for being here with us to remember my dad. He spoke so highly of his family here on Garfield Street, and I'm just honored and privileged to be able to be with you all today. And I hope that I do his justice memory. So thank you so much for being here. Mario asked me to recite his eulogy that we did at the memorial. So that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today. Today we gather with heavy hearts to celebrate the life of a man who was to so many of us a dear friend, beloved family member, mentor, and teacher. My father, William Thomas Yarrow, fondly known as Bill, Uncle Bill, Billy, Bicycle Bill, William T., Batman, and Mr. Yarrow may no longer be with us in person, but his memory will live on in the stories we tell, the lessons he taught, and the love he shared. He was the only child of Mabel and William Yarrow and grew up on Long Island, attending Belmore School before going on to Mepham High School and ultimately SUNY Oneonta. He loved intensely and had many passions which shaped his life and now his legacy. The first and perhaps most foundational of these was his love of the Caribbean, her tranquil turquoise waters, her music, her food, and of course her people. Bill served in the Peace Corps where he began his teaching career at an all-girls school in Grenada. His beloved Grenada was the beginning of his lifelong love of the Caribbean and paved the way for the rest of his adult life. It was in his beloved Isle of Spice that he would meet dear friends like Mousie and introduce dear childhood friends like Spider and Vinny to her warm shores. He would go on to spend the majority of his adult life in the Caribbean, ultimately building a home and raising a family in St. Thomas, United States Virgin Islands. As only Bill could, he fully immersed himself in Caribbean culture, so much so that I think that he believed he was a West Indian. He blended seemingly with Mummy's large Trini family and friends. He would play mass and lorikeets, eat conch and bullfoot soup, try and wine like a West Indian, and of course, drink rum with the best of them at some of the most authentic rum shops in the Caribbean, all while trying to recreate the local dialect. His love of music led him to the Calypsonian, the Mighty Sparrow, who he, by the way, would tell me was born in Grenada and thereby not really Trinidadian. Never one to back down from a storyline, he would often speak of the three greats, Arrow, Sparrow, and Yarrow. But I cannot speak of Grenada without noting that the best thing to happen to him there was, of course, meeting the love of his life, my mummy, his glory. Legend has it he saw her across a crowded room, and while he and Mummy have some subtle variations on what happened next, Dad would always have a sparkle in his eye, speaking of the night they met. And the rest, as they say, is history. They were married in Trinidad at a garden wedding so grand it made the local newspaper with the headline, "Another Yank Grabs a Trinidad Chick." Together for 52 years and married for 47, you and Mummy lived quite the life full of adventure, love, and family. During your life together, you lived in Key West before going on to settle in St. Thomas, where you built a home on just under an acre of land, 800 feet above sea level, at 5-7 Estate Sorgen Fry, before ultimately retiring together at Apple Creek and Plantation. You would travel the world as husband and wife, and eventually return to your beloved Isle of Spice for an unforgettable vacation over a year ago. It wasn't always easy, no marriage is. Together you survived 2 hurricanes, breast cancer, prostate cancer, a separation, an ICU hospitalization. And in the end, it was only death that could separate you. In the end, as it was in the beginning, Gloria was the love of your life.
You were hooked from the moment you met her, as you were quoted in saying in the Trinidadian Punch. And when you were discharged from the hospital on hospice care, you told my sister Simone, I am going home to the arms of my beloved Glory. To know Bill is to know of his passion for education. In St. Thomas, he devoted his professional life to 26 years of teaching high school English at Charlotte Amalia High School. He believed deeply in the power of education, and he knew that a good teacher could change a life. He took time to know his students, to listen to them, and to make them feel seen. I will never forget grading papers with you one Saturday morning and handing you a test of a student that had failed their final exam. Yet when you recorded his final grade for the semester, you gave him a passing grade. Seeing the bewildered look on my face, you explained that without a high school diploma, he couldn't get a good paying job, a job he desperately needed to support his single mother and younger siblings. He didn't need another year trying to learn the true meaning of Canterbury Tales. He needed a job, and you were not going to be the one to stand in the way of that. But the wonders of your teaching career didn't stop there. Living on a small island, I was constantly recognized as Mr. Yarrow's daughter. In the beginning, I would cringe in fear, thinking to myself, oh no, what did he do? But time and time again, your former students would speak of your kindness, of your wisdom, and of your direct role in changing their life for the better. It was in St. Thomas that you first developed your love of paddleball at the courts and subbase, a love and a passion that continued when you retired, this time at the courts on Garfield Street on Hollywood Beach. If you ever played with him, you knew it wasn't just a game, it was a challenge, a test of skill, and more often than not, a laugh. He loved competition, but more than that, he loved the camaraderie and the connection it brought. He had other, perhaps lesser-known loves. There was, of course, his love of Jeopardy, which he watched nightly without fail. A true superfan, he would often refer to Alex Trebek as his friend, going so far as to tell my sister, you know, my friend Alex had pancreatic cancer too. He loved a newspaper and, of course, his daily crossword. Growing up, if I borrowed his car on a Saturday, I wouldn't dare return home without a daily news and, of course, stopping at the post office. He would take pride in clipping newspaper articles and saving them for me or my friends, noting each time, I saw this and thought of you. A tradition he continued even up to his last days in the hospital. Bill loved to chat it up, as he called it, with people getting to know them and sharing stories of travel and finding common ground. In his final days in the hospital, he would introduce me to the ultrasound tech, a young mother from Haiti, or his palliative care doctor, who he found out was from Colombia, and was able to share stories of his travels throughout South America. Connection was important to him, even in times of sadness, a connection he cherished by keeping in contact with cousins like Marianne, Al, Tom, and Catherine, to name a few, and lifelong friendships with the boys from Belmore like Spider, Tony, and Vinny. He still remained close with friends from St. Thomas, and of course, his beloved paddleball friends from Garfield Street. After his cancer diagnosis, I would beg him to tell his friends, his family, but each time he would say no, citing that cousin so-and-so or friend so-and-so all had their own problems and he didn't want to bother them. I wish you could have heard the way your friends and family spoke to me about you when I told them of your illness and ultimately your passing. You were loved beyond measure, cherished, and of course, yet again, there was always some larger-than-life tale of Bill and his adventures with friends. Of all Bill's monikers, Dad was by far my personal favorite. Legend has it that upon seeing me for the first time, he uttered, I made that, and from henceforth, I would forever be his darling daughter. We didn't always see eye to eye. I, for example, never shared his fondness for the Dollar Tree, or PBS, or dive bars. But none of that mattered, because in the end, we shared so much more. Summer vacations, Saturday mornings listening to Sparrow and reading papers, marathon sessions of playing 500 rummy, or countless other memories of your life, of our life as father and daughter. You were always there, wearing your Duke hat, of course. When we met with the surgical oncologist, he commented on your Duke hat, asking if you went there. And with a smile on your face, you said, no, my daughter did. As we left, you said again with a smile on your face, I really like him. Is it okay that he went to UNC? I would sit in awe as you would share stories of travels and adventures with dear friends throughout your life. While most times they seemed more like stories from Gulliver's Travels or a character from Paul Keene's Douglas, the message was always the same. From your days managing your nightclub, the Garden of Earthly Delights in Grenada, to the life on north side of St. Thomas, to retirement in Plantation, you lived a life well lived with dear friends who shared your passions and interests and family that loved you dearly. You can't make this stuff up, you would say, but sometimes your stories just seemed a little too good to be true. Like the time you and Vinny were arrested and managed to walk away from the ordeal without a record, or the time in St. Thomas when your friend, the chief of police, pulled you over at Four Corners because it was his birthday and he wanted to have a drink with you, and then proceeded to open the back of his patrol car to a full mobile bar. You always wanted the best for me, and moreover knew that I was capable of much more, even when I didn't see it in myself. Perhaps my most treasured and most missed memory of you is the call I would make to you after a long day at work. It was always the same question: did you save lives today? And on bad days when I said no, you would ask, did you bring comfort to your patients and their families? In the end, I couldn't save your life, but I hope that I brought you comfort. I am so thankful for the time that we had together, especially in these recent weeks. In your final days, you shared your crisis of faith with me, a crisis of faith I understand all too well. And yet, as I was going through your things after your passing, I found your daily word. It was bookmarked for Saturday, December 21st, which incidentally was the first day you woke up in your home in hospice care. It was also the last day I saw you walk, the last day I shared a meal with you, lobster bisque, of course, and the last day I saw you stop to think of others, taking time to make sure your hospice nurse knew that she could help herself to whatever was in the kitchen and to make herself at home. I would like to share with you all the daily word reading for that day, entitled, "The Light of God Within Me Shines Brightly." No matter the amount of darkness that surrounds me, the illumination that comes from the light of God within me shines brightly. This awareness blesses me and helps me maintain my perspective about the shifting state of the world and the changeless nature of God. Just as certain times of year are darker than others, certain times of life are dark, while others are lighter. Yet the light of God is eternal and unchanging. I place my attention on the light of God, which shines brightly within me. On my darker days, it is the light that sustains me. During easier times, I shine my inner light into the world and illuminate the way for others. And so, as we lay him to rest, I encourage you all to be the light in someone else's darkness, to, in the words of my father, be kind to yourselves and those you meet. And if you can't save a life today, then at least bring comfort to them and their loved ones. Dad, I hope that the Panama Canal is all that you dreamed of and more. May you rest in peace. All my love, your darling God. Thank you all so much.
This time I want to bring up Yarrow, resident Bible pastor, say some inspirational and spiritual words for all of us. As I was listening to Charlotte, I was envisioning Bill parking his car right in that first spot on the south side and having his bicycle rack on the back of the car and taking his bike off, and he'd have his big sombrero hat on, a straw hat, and I would see him ride his bike right through here, and then he would stop And for many of you that might have been here, you remember that we lost Richard, which is who we last did a memorial service here for. And he and Richard were close. And so every time I would see him, he'd stop, call me over, and ask me, how's Richard? And that wasn't just about Richard. It tells you a lot about somebody in their heart when they stop in their day, they stop in their routine, and they want to know about somebody else. They care about somebody else. And so I appreciated that about Bill. And one thing I feel very strongly about is that if Bill had anything to say right now, he could show up here for a little bit. I think he'd probably say something like, enough about me. Enough about me. Now that he has seen God face to face, enough about me. And I think he'd say, Mario, go tell them what you know, that they need to hear, that they heard how many times. And for those of you that know, then you know how grateful we are to him for letting us know that he is, that he loves, that he cares, and that he cared enough to come down to earth and take on a body like ours and sacrifice it on the cross, which we are about to celebrate here soon, so that his holiness could be satisfied, because we are not holy enough. And unholiness cannot stand in the presence of holiness. So he knew he had to make a way that we could not do. So he came, he lived, he died, he rose again to open the gates of heaven to those that would believe. And so you've heard it before, you're going to hear it again. John 3:16. For God. Can you imagine that he's listening to us right now? For God. Listening to every thought you have. Knows every thought you've had from the day you were born. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever, that means every one of us get a choice, whoever believes in him. And the word believe is not just mental assent. Oh yeah, I believe. The word believe in the Greek means to live by. That means you surrender to, rely on, and you learn to know who he is. You go to the sacred scriptures to find out the messages that he has passed on to every one of us. And every one of us is going to get this chance, like Bill has now come face to face with him. We will too. And he may ask, how many times have you heard? And what did you do with what you heard? For God, yeah, God so loved the world, loves you and me, that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him would not perish. The word for death, by the way, in case you don't know it, the word for death, the definition for death is separation. It means you separate. Bill has separated from us here. When we die, we separate. And God does not want us to separate from this life, not being right with him, and stay separated forever. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him would not perish, but have everlasting life. God's heart is that he wants us to be with him in heaven forever, experiencing no more tears, no more pain, no more suffering, and no more separation, no more death. So I just encourage you, please, if you haven't, search this out for yourself. Don't be without excuse, ever, that you didn't give him the time to open your heart to him and ask him to make it all real for you like he did for me and for those of you that know the truth. I'd like to end in prayer. Please join me. Father God, thank you so much for this little bit of time here that you get to hopefully reveal yourself to us. Those of us you've revealed yourself to already, I thank you so much that you cared enough and you came and you did what you did. And for those that are here that you know have not really sought you out yet, I just ask you again, as you have heard, I'm sure, from so many of the loved ones and the people that know you, that you have put it on their hearts to pray for these that are listening, that have not surrendered to you yet, that have not sought you out. I ask you, please, open their hearts. Let this be another opportunity that you get to knock on the door of their heart, that they would open up and seek you out and ask you to reveal yourself to them the way that I know you so want to, and that you're the only one that can. Father, I ask that of you, please, in the precious name of your Son, Jesus, and thank you for dying on the cross for us. Amen. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Mary. This time, I'd like to ask Gloria and Charlotte on each side. On behalf of the Garfield Street Hannibal community, thank you all for coming and sharing with us today.